Ooh, from
We're
the
live.
Jura, this one. Good morning.
Welcome back. Hey,
Yes. Welcome back to James.
it seems like only last week we did this.
Seems like a week ago.
So here we are. We've got more questions. We've even got some answers.
We got
Um,
one answer and a lot of questions.
yeah. Well, it's all the same answer. Eat real
Okay.
food, be happy.
Eat real food, be happy. That's good, right?
Yeah. So last week, when we left our heroes, we had been discussing how to sharpen knives at home, and we said that it's it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's a relatively simple procedure, but it takes practice, and if you don't have the right tools, it's hard to do. And the other thing is, in the old days, back when our parents were cooking, knives were different. The classic French cook's knife was made from carbon steel, and it
Yeah.
was much easier to sharpen. You had to care for it more because it wasn't stainless, so it would discolor and stuff. So you had to keep it clean and dry. You didn't want it to rust. But that carbon steel was much easier to sharpen. So when you see chefs talking about sharpening your knife on a stone, it was much easier then, because now the knives are mostly stainless steel, like 1810 stainless steel, and they're very, very hard. Now, the good thing is they keep an edge longer. Typically, when you buy a knife, it's sharp and it'll stay sharp for a long time. But when it does get dull, and of course it will get dull eventually, unless you don't use it.
Right.
If you buy a new knife and you put it in a drawer and you never use it, it'll never get dull. Uh, but assuming you're going
Are
to
you,
use
are
it,
you, is that from a real experience? Is
I've
that
never
like
tried that. I've never tried it,
uh,
so I shouldn't say. But assuming you're going to actually use your knife to cut food on a cutting board, it's going to eventually dull. And the modern knives are very, very hard to sharpen. So, but you do want to hone them regularly, which it's kind of hard to explain. But basically, what happens is you've got the edge of a knife like this, and when you use it, the little molecules at the end, they get all fuzzy, and
molecule? You're talking about the edges,
yeah,
the pieces. Okay.
yeah. And so by honing it, you kind of just put that all in alignment again, and you can keep your knife sharp for much, much longer.
Right.
And you see it when you go to a butcher shop. The butcher's
Yeah.
always running his knife on a steel before he cuts up the
Yeah.
meat,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it just puts a finer edge on the blade and makes it much better to cut with. But ultimately, it's going to get dull and you're going to have to sharpen it. I recommend going to a knife sharpener, like at the
Yeah.
farmer's market. There's a guy. You drop it off, you go shopping, come back, pick them up. But Olive's going to demonstrate how to hone your knives on a regular basis. Basically, every time you're going to use your knife, right?
Kenny is back.
12,000 grit, no arm hair
Wow.
day.
Damn. Oh, yeah, that sounds good. I don't know what that is, but that sounds good, right?
What he means by that is that he tests the knife on his own arm hair, and when he
Oh,
cuts it
wow.
off, that means it's sharp enough. So
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've done that
he's
too.
very, yeah, yeah.
See,
Olive does it on his head. Me too. Um,
we do it mutually. So, yeah, you see, the butcher specifically because you need to hone that blade. Also, what happened to the blade? You have little teeth, and literally when you get a knife and you feel it like this, you go like this, you can feel the teeth. Now,
yeah,
don't go like this; it
yeah.
hurts a
No,
lot.
that's bad.
Go perpendicular, and you just feel it, and you feel those teeth. When you don't feel the teeth, it's soft,
Hmm.
and then you hone it. For to sharpen, also I go to a sharpener, but now we bought this special machine that's really cool, um, but it's expensive, and only two chefs know how to use it:
Hmm.
Chef Matt and Chef Lev, right? Because it's gonna eat your knife away if you don't pay attention. So it's kind of a
No,
big
no,
wheel.
Kenneth. No, Kenneth. You'll get sharper with age. Your knives won't.
uh,
Yeah, and
so
we should
I
also add that why is it so important to have sharp knives? Well, aside from the obvious that they work better, uh, sharp knives are much safer in the kitchen. You don't want to
Yeah.
use a dull knife because it's going to slip around. If you do cut yourself, it's probably going to be a rougher cut and it's more dangerous.
Yeah,
So
because you have to
you
force more. You have to force
right,
on the knife. You have to really go for it because it's not cutting. And you
right,
just go and you. So as soon as you apply force, it's not good. It doesn't work.
right. That's when you're going to start slipping, and that's when accidents happen. So a sharp knife is always safer, and that may seem contradictory because,
I
of
know.
course, you can cut yourself easier. But if you
Now,
hold your hands in the proper position and you know what you're doing, then it really cuts down on the chances that you're going to cut yourself. And a good sharp knife is going to go right through
yeah,
what you're cutting.
exactly. Exactly. That's what's important. It cuts in one time. You don't have to go back and go back.
Yeah.
So
It's not like
I'm
cutting
gonna
a 2x4 where you've got to saw it. It's, food is softer.
well, try a 4x4.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm going to show you how to hone the way I hone. There's many ways of honing, people, but I'm going to show you one way that's safe to start with. This is a this is a hard one. It's gonna almost sharpen. It's not a round honing. It's a little bit sharper. So because I don't have time to sharpen my knife right now, so I go for something a little more abrasive. It's not great, but it works. And the way I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go just like this. The angle is important, right?
Hmm.
It's about 15, 20 degrees.
Yeah.
It's average. That's why Japanese knives are a little harder to hone than German style because of the angle. The Japanese knives are very sharp. They're like 10 degrees or something.
Yeah.
So they're really hard to sharpen or to hone, I'm sorry. And what I'm going to do is I'm not going to go too hard, but you see the angle is not big. And in America, I've noticed that you guys go like this, right?
Right.
You go like this.
Hmm.
So it's a little bit towards my hand. I don't like it. So when I teach students, I don't want them to do this. I want them to go the other way, like literally away. So maybe it doesn't look as fancy, but look what I do. This is how we do in France. You just go away from so you
Hmm.
don't have to, you see what I mean?
Hmm.
Rather than doing this. So when you go like this, and in the kitchen you go super fast, which is okay when you know what you're doing, I guess, right? But then the students they want to do the same, right? So for me, I would rather teach that, go away. And you see,
Right. And just like we've stressed with using a knife to cut and to chop, speed shouldn't be the goal. The goal should be efficiency.
yeah.
Speed will
Once you get
come
good
with
at it, yeah, exactly.
speed comes with practice. The more you do it, the faster
I
you're going
know.
to be. But you shouldn't try to be fast right out of the gate because it's
Should I cut my
dangerous.
hair? So,
No,
you
no
guys,
knife is that sharp.
I know a lot of people they like to do this. They love to do this, right?
You're right.
Okay. Now, I don't think that's a good idea personally. You just hone your knife, and then you're gonna go cut some paper, which is terrible for the knives.
Right. So you're
You
going
know,
to
it's
dull
like
it
so.
immediately.
Right, it's so weird because you're gonna go like this, and you're gonna show everyone that the knife was sharp, but it's not anymore. So just feel it. It's plenty. It's plenty. If it doesn't feel, if you don't hear that, then
Right.
yeah. So that's the way it is. Now to sharpen, I'm not going to show you how to sharpen. I might someday. I'm not a professional sharpening. I take my knives to a sharpener. I go to either Philip West in the farmers market in Berkeley. You have also something Edge that they come with a truck. It's really cool. You've seen those people? Edge
Yeah.
something.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's wonderful. And like I
those are
said
great.
before, you can drop your knives off because he's at the top of the market. You drop your knives, you
Right.
go shop, buy all your vegetables, whatever, and then when you come back, the knives are done. You pick them up, you go home. And you can just bring one or two knives a week. I mean, you don't have to bring all your
Yeah,
knives. Just
exactly.
just
Right.
bring one or two, and then the next week maybe bring a couple different ones, depending on how many knives you have. And look down the length of the blade to see if there's a line of sheen on top. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Because basically you don't want the guy to remove like an inch of your blade.
Hmm.
That's the idea. So knives, Chef, you were talking about knives earlier and the quality of knife. I mean, not the quality, the how they're made of. Now
Right.
you're talking about carbon knife, right?
Right.
The carbon knife is now coming back into
Yeah.
trend. They're very hard to maintain. So it's a knife that's soft. So it's really hard to maintain. You have to keep honing because it's a softer metal. But it's I've heard chefs saying that it's much sharper and much
Yeah.
better to cut stuff. So I don't know. I'm more like a I don't really care for my knife. This is a high carbon stainless. That's what I
Yeah.
have for my students. Something that's very good. It holds its blade. I don't have time to sharpen all day long because the students needs to have a good knife at the school. So I want to make sure I got something really good that lasts at least the 2 hours they're here, right? 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And and the carbon is what my mom had. That little rusty knife. That's what she
Yeah.
had.
I used to
And it
have
was
one that I really loved, and you do have to be careful
yep,
when you
yep,
clean it. You want to dry it immediately because it
yep.
will rust.
Hmm.
And like any metal, if it rusts, it's not ruined. You just have to remove the rust and then kind of oil it and whatever. But it requires more maintenance, and some people
Yep,
just don't want to have to deal with that.
exactly. So the maintenance, carbon, otherwise no maintenance, get those guys. High carbon stainless, they just stay really good. Not stainless, huh? The stainless one are the cheap one, the too hard, the too tough. You
Yeah.
can't sharpen them, you can't do anything with that. Those are the cheap stuff. Cheap stuff is
Hmm.
stainless. This is a high carbon stainless. It's a blend. That's most knives are like that now. Okay.
And
The, the
it's like so many things. If you spend a little extra money, you're going to get something that's going to last much longer,
right.
and it's going to perform better. And ultimately, that's what you want. You want a knife that performs well and is
Yep.
safe. But they chip on the other
Yeah.
soft stuff has to
The
be
cheap.
maintained more. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Kenny, I
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't mean to ignore your earlier comment about almost cutting your finger off with a Japanese saw.
Yes, you
Um,
did. You say I don't.
I
Ha ha. Yeah. You said ha ha.
uh,
No,
I mean, you won't catch me doing stuff like that, really. I mean,
that's how who. That's
but
this trick, right?
that
That's how
sounded
the.
very painful.
That's the magician. He realized he could do a trick like this, right?
Yeah, yeah. I can.
So
I do this for all the grandchildren.
for the kids, yeah, I know, and they're like, they always look. You talk too much anyway. Well, we don't hear you, just so you know.
That little cutie on your lap. Need to hear more from
Yeah.
that one. So yeah,
Anyway,
so
cool.
we have a follow-up question to this. Someone had asked, and this is a good question. And
Chef,
did we talk about
what?
this? What are the most essential
I don't
knives?
know. I don't know, but what? Look what I got.
That is very definitely not a knife.
You think
That
that's
is a
legit?
big honking piece of Comté Gruyere.
That this is from the Jura. I just realized.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
The Comté is not from Jura, is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
It is one of the
wow.
world's great cheeses. It's
That's
a
why it's so good. So you know
fantastic
this is.
cheese.
Oh my God. The Jura is. Oh, I know. I how cow.
It's in Montana, isn't it?
Yeah, it was made from a cow, Kenny. You're right. Totally right. So Jura. But let's talk about Jura for a minute. Just a quick note on that Comté. Why is Jura so good for cheese? Well, this is what's happening. In the Jura or the Alps, the cows, and I know I talked about that earlier, but the cows that live in high in the mountain, the grass they eat are loaded with omega-3, right? This is
Hmm.
omega-3 is an anti-freeze. That's what it does. So the higher or the colder it is, the more the grass is going to have omega-3. That's why those cheeses that come from the Alps, the Jura,
Hmm.
high in the mountain are very, very good for you. They're
Yeah.
loaded with omega-3 because of that grass. So think about when you buy something like this, it's really a superfood. I'm tired of people shooting on cheese and eggs and salami. You know, if you buy good quality stuff, those are pristine. That's why they cost so much.
Right.
It's a pristine product. It's good for you. And speaking of that, Lisa, my business partner, she went to a conference, a really cool nutrition conference Once a year, there's a big conference. All kind of very cool people go there. And she brought me that T-shirt that I really love. I
How
know you
did you
wanted
eat
to,
before you
like a rat,
started eating like a human?
like a rat. I eat my cereals. No, I don't eat cereals. I'm sorry, guys. I eat eggs, and so the author, and I had to take this because my memory is. It's
Yeah.
I don't think you know him, Dr. Bill Schindler, like just like the Schindler List a little bit,
Uh-huh.
Bill Schindler. But I started to read this book. I mean, it's crazy. He took his family to Africa and all these crazy places. This is kids travel the world and go to tribes and stuff like that. And one of the tribes that I'm just at the beginning of the book, and I love the whole content. They and I know it's going to grow some people. So the people that eat only vegetable, they should go away because that's going to be pretty crazy. But what happened is one of the item they drink blood from the animal, right? Mixed with raw milk. Did you see that? So let me show you. So basically, you drink the blood from the animal hot with the raw milk shake, and that's your lunch. It's really super strong in nutrients, right? But the way they do that is there's a way, and I've known that. I just didn't know that it still existed. They make a hole in the jugular of the cow. Have you seen that, chef? And they get James. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're out. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going. So basically, they make a hole on the jugular. They get a liter of the blood hot to feed people, and they put a piece of dirt and they fix the wound, and the car just goes and it's crazy, huh? And they do that regularly, and they mix that with raw milk. So that's one of the thing about the book. I love the traditional way and the way it's very primal, I would say, and they're super healthy and stuff. So it's pretty crazy, huh? And so I love this guy. Plus, I love the idea. Can you hear, James? I can't hear you, so I don't know if it's Kenny. I know Kenny is listening. Kenny, can you hear James? Maybe. Okay, so we have a little. Can you hear me, James? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna keep going, and James is just gonna nod. Okay. Oh no, he said no. So what did you do, Jim? How about you reconnect? Okay. Anyway. So Kenny, still alternate attitude during the year, so the range of vegetables in the diet. Yes, that is very true, and that is why when a cow eats during its full year, it eats green a lot, right? But it's not 100% because in the winter there's no green. So you have to understand. Yeah, we can not gems, which is a
Can
good
you
thing.
hear me now?
Ah, yes, yes.
Oh, I switched to a different thing. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
and that's also
So
why the Maasai can travel with their food. They walk with their cows and they can eat wherever they are. They can milk it, they can take the blood, they take just a little bit. They don't take it from the
yeah,
same
right.
cow every time. It's an
Isn't it
extraordinary
crazy?
thing. And these people are amazing looking. They're very tall, they're lean, they're incredibly strong. My brother had contacts with lots of them when he lived in Africa back in the
Oh
70s, and
yeah, right.
he used
Oh
to
my
tell me
God.
about the Maasai, and they were just incredible. And you'd see them walking in groups across these vast plains, and they could just walk, and they'd kind of jog, and they're just beautiful looking people and very healthy.
It is not. It's not vampirism. It's blood has a lot of nutrients and mixed with raw milk. I guess that does a crazy meal. Obviously, the kids are super healthy.
Right.
There's no problem with the teeth. And one of the guy who went all over around the world was Doctor. Oh my God, Lisa, help me please. The guy who went over the world and did the from that. Sorry, no.
Also,
That book that the diet it's a dentist 1921 went all over the world and collected all the diet. Anyway, sorry, I'm blanking. We're both blanking. Anyway,
also, it may seem strange to drink blood, but basically every country that has a tradition of eating pigs has some form of blood sausage,
yeah.
the blood is a major component of
Right,
the
that's
and
true.
when typically on a farm, when you slaughter a pig, the first thing you do is you drain the blood out in a
Yep, yep,
pan
yep.
and you save that, and that goes
Huh?
to make blood sausage.
Western price, Western A price. Thank you, Lisa. You know that, Western A price, right? It's the same
Yeah,
idea. It's a dentist that went all over the world. He did a bunch of book, and Western Price is a foundation in America that I really, we really like. It's very traditional, and we talk about eating everything really. I
yeah,
mean everything in the animal, 100% everything, right? That's you don't
that's right.
waste, right? Anyway, sorry. Yeah. So food, traditional food, before 50 years, before the last what 70 years,
Hmm.
it was super healthy food in general, and then it becomes terrible, and then look at all the disease we get. So
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, pardon me, industrialization brought some benefits to humankind. I mean,
Yeah.
we have lots of things that we didn't have before, but it also, when it translated into food, it it kind of did the reverse. I mean, we've suffered from it because
Yeah.
so many people are so dependent on industrially made, mass produced food
Oh
that
yeah. And
um,
you have to understand that I mean, long time ago, you have to realize that people, if they want to do an assessment on human diet, they need to go millions of years ago, not just like the last 50 years or 100 years. That's not how you do that, because the genes don't change in 100 years.
right.
So what you're eating is based on your DNA. That's it. You can't
I
invent stuff.
Just to be clear, I change my jeans every couple days, so
Oh yeah,
I
you're
wash them
talking.
and then I wear them again. Yeah, so
So
traditional foods. We are all about traditional
and we need to
foods.
go back to that. And this is one of the things we're teaching at Kitchen Empire. Basically, cook everything, and at least know how to cook everything, right? Everything, all the veggies, all the starch you want, all the meat, fish, everything. You need to be able to teach to because people pick a diet which is unfortunate, and then they're gonna switch. In about a year, they'll pick another diet and then another
Right.
diet. So might as well know how to cook everything, right? So that's my point.
Well, and also most people that are searching for these diets, they want to be healthy, but 9 times out of 10, their
Exactly.
motivation is weight loss. They're looking for the
Uh,
perfect diet that they can eat that will allow them to lose weight and keep their weight off.
Eat less
And
carb.
yeah,
Like less
and
carb. Let's. So when we talked about carb, we talk about pasta, rice. The man-made carbs.
right,
Vegetables are still carb, but they're really good.
yeah,
Fermentation, yeah, we have a whole thing on fermentation that we want to talk about, and fermentation and microbes. So this is a big subject that we're going to invite people over, but
hmm,
in a few weeks we'll see.
right.
Anyway,
So
all right.
I had this other question about knives, but I think we covered it already. What are the most essential knives? And I think we
You
talked
know,
about it depends on what you do, but the most essential knife is a simple cook's knife.
little guy, bread knife, and this. This is really important. This is cheap stuff. Paring knife.
Yeah.
This is super important. This is the three knife you need. That's all. All these guys. Okay.
Yep.
Bread knife if you eat bread. If you don't, then you don't need that. But this is useful to cut some big stuff and maybe sometimes some tart or cake.
Yeah.
Chef and This guy. This
Yep.
is super important. You can do lots of good.
Now
And
there are plenty of other knives, of course, and if you do a lot of butchering, you're going to want a good butcher knife.
and a good
They have
machete.
they have fish filleting knives that are very flexible and very thin and very sharp. Those can be nice if you buy a lot of big whole fish. Yeah.
So
Most
this is a
people,
boning. This is
right?
boning. The
Most
fillet is
people,
more even. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And most people don't buy big whole fish. I mean, if you're a fisherman and you're bringing home salmon, you might want to have a good flexible fillet knife, but most people don't do that, so it's not important.
I'm gonna take
And
my
in a
keys back
pinch,
in the fridge.
you could use your cook's knife to fillet a big salmon. I mean, easily, as long as it's sharp, it'll do the
Right.
job just fine. So, I mean, we have a bunch of knives, but they tend to be sort of the same kind of knives. I mean, we have several cook's knives, we have several paring knives. I have a really good bread knife. Um, but that's just depending on the size we want. I like a bigger knife than my wife does.
Right.
Um, and I have one really long cook's knife that's handy if we're like, you know,
I,
for
I got
certain
my.
things.
Look, I know you know this guy. This is a Gran Padano.
Grana Padano.
Grana Padano.
It's made up
Parmesan.
in the it's
Whoa.
made up in the Po Valley in northern Italy. That was created by monks like 1,000 years ago. That one's even older than Parmigiano Reggiano, actually.
Wow.
But when these monks, these Cistercian monks, they cleared out the marshes that were there, and they reclaimed these marshes into really, really fertile grazing ground, and they started raising these cows. And these cows eat this grass, and it's so nutritious that they produce great milk, great lot of fat content, and they started making these large, hard, granular cheeses, which are the basis of the cuisine across northern Italy. Emilia Romagna,
That takes a while to.
Lombardia.
Those takes forever to make, right?
Yeah, they are typically aged at least a year. Some of them are aged for 2 or 3 years, depending on what they want to do. And it's a classic grating cheese, of course, but they're also delicious to eat. They're great in sauces and soups and
Shaved in
casseroles.
shaved in salads,
Yeah, on
right?
salads. It's
So
that region of Italy is famous for fresh pasta and a lot of filled pastas, so they use that a lot in that. Great
so
stuff.
so pasta and cheese. I don't like pasta, and I don't think that's a good idea to eat too much of it. But just so you know, pasta and cheese. So macaroni and cheese basically is a full protein, right? So it's good to
Right.
know if it's a
But
full
also
protein, it's complete
you don't
protein. So
you
it's
don't
not
want to
great
think
in my opinion,
But you don't
but
want to
it's
think either that you can only grate cheese over pasta. That cheese is grated over freshly cooked vegetables.
oh yeah,
Uh,
right, right.
you can shave it into thin slices and serve it with a sliced steak. That's another common northern Italian
Oh
dish.
yeah, I do that
Um,
on asparagus. I roast the
yeah,
asparagus for like
asparagus.
10 minutes, really high,
Yeah,
with a bunch of that, and I put a
yeah,
lot, and I cover my tray. And then maybe I can do that as a demo because basically at the end I got Parmesan on the asparagus, but I have a lot of Parmesan on the tray
right.
that I can take as a disc, as a
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it's
Or
called,
you can
right?
just do that. You can grate it and put it into little piles and put it on a non-stick baking mat and it'll fry up into these like little cheese
Crisp.
wafers.
Yeah, you have little crisp. Oh my God, what's going on, man?
Pardon me, pardon me.
Are you? Is that the end?
I gotta quit doing tequila shots right before the show. That's the answer. Um, well, I have another question here from somebody. Oh, I treasure my 14-inch scimitar, but I make a lot
Yeah,
of
scimitar.
sausage. Yeah.
Good.
Well, I'll have to remember that, Kenneth. Next time I decide to break into your house, I'll remember that you have that. So, um, here's a question that I think speaks to what we talk about all the time. And the question is, what ingredients should I avoid either for health reasons or environmental reasons? This is what we talk about every episode. You should avoid things that aren't real. You should avoid things that are mass produced in huge
So
factories.
you can talk about industrialized food.
Hmm.
Don't eat that. And if I may, I would kind of go easy on the soy product. You know, all this soy stuff
Yeah.
and this soy meat and soy, that'll kill you.
Yeah,
Seriously.
people think that soy is so great, the soy milk. They say, "Oh, look, they eat it in Japan. They're very
No,
healthy." But in
no.
Japan, they tend to eat fermented soy more than just soy. They don't
Well,
just drink.
soy was not for human consumption. First of all, it
Right,
was either fermented or not eaten. That was not, no.
right.
You either ferment it for like, I think there was a minimum also. It was like a long time because it's a
Yeah,
hard bean to break down, and it's super healthy when it's fermented. You know, it's just
yeah.
fun, but otherwise it's not. So don't even don't even go there.
It's interesting that a lot of people want to avoid milk. They want, dairy, which I don't know why they avoid dairy, but I can
Some people have
understand
an
not.
issue. No, some people have
I can
issue. That's
understand.
completely
Well, but
understandable. Yeah.
some people have an issue, but a lot of people just think that it's bad for you, so they don't. Now, I can understand not drinking milk. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
drink milk.
Right. 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 Right.
Like my a good friend of mine always says, always eat your milk.
Yeah.
So, instead of milk, think of yogurt and cheese but so a lot of people, in an effort to avoid milk, rather than just not drinking milk, they substitute all these other things. So there's almond milk, soy milk, rice milk.
So,
These
James,
are
do you have a number of the crazy amount of water it takes to grow almond? Have you seen those numbers
I
that are
don't have
abs?
a actual figure, but it's a lot. It's the most water intensive.
God, it's
It's
crazy to grow almonds. Like
Yeah,
in California, it
yeah,
takes all the water from everything else, and
yeah.
people just, oh my God, way more
Well,
than cows, way more than cows, right?
yeah, right,
Like,
right. It's crazy. And they make milk out of it by crushing them and grinding them and mixing them with
there's nothing
more
in there.
water.
It's
And
white.
people drink gallons of this stuff, and it's like, nuts. I mean, uh almonds are good source of
They're
protein, but
great. They're
like you
great.
say, it's a
Great
very
food.
water intensive, and they grow so many of them because it's probably the most consumed nut, after
Right.
peanuts, which are not actually a nut, that's a legume. But people think, nuts are good for you. Nuts are a great source of
Great.
protein. The oils in
Absolutely.
nuts are really healthy. But the thing about nuts is you can't just sit and eat a huge thing of nuts. I mean,
No.
it's just not. It's like anything. Too much of anything is probably not good
But
for you.
okay, let me give you a little thing here. You said the oil from the nuts is good for you. Yes,
In
when
the
you
nut,
eat it, exactly, in the nut. So you have to understand that as soon as you break that nut to extract the oil, it won't last that long. It
right?
will be oxidized. So you have to think about it. Everything that's processed independently from you don't know when it was done. That's kind of the issue that we have, right? So when you eat a walnut oil, I know they are really good. You can taste them. If it tastes like walnut, it's good. If it doesn't, you cannot eat it. Like
It's
seriously,
rancid
you
and
can't eat
it's
it. It's bad,
oxidized.
and it will oxidize really fast. So there's one brand that does really good oil, right, James, that we know here, the
Yeah,
Tourangelle.
yeah,
They put those oil in a can of metal, and I keep them in the fridge. I use them for salad, but I keep them in the fridge. And if once I smell that every time, and I taste it, because if it doesn't smell like beautiful, like walnuts and stuff, it's done, and it goes pretty fast.
yeah.
So it's not. I mean, it's I don't know.
They're
It's just
smart too. They've started making really small
yeah,
tins of
great,
oil.
great,
So
great.
for somebody that doesn't use a lot, it's much better because you don't want to buy a big bottle
Keep them.
of
Yeah,
walnut oil and then have it go bad. That's just a waste of money. And in glass, it's probably going to go bad even faster because the light's going to affect it. So yeah. So what was I
so
saying?
no,
Yeah.
nuts are great in. Yeah.
So
So
almonds
the
might be
oil.
good
Yeah.
for you, but if you're going to drink a gallon of almond milk, it's probably way too much. And a little handful of nuts before. If you think about nuts, in the shell. Like in the old days when I was a kid, at Christmas time we'd have a big bowl of walnuts on the table, and we'd have a nutcracker there.
Right.
And so
Yep.
you'd crack the walnuts, you'd pick out
Right.
the meat and eat it. And if you do that, you're just not going to eat as
I know, right?
much. But if you buy all these shelled walnuts and you get these big
I know.
bags of them, people will just sit there and eat nuts like crazy. In a bar, they put bowls of nuts sometimes on the bar, and people, you just eat
And they
them
put
and eat
some
them and
crazy,
eat them.
they put some crazy salt, the really crappy salt, cheap salt.
Yeah, yeah,
Those have been out forever. They are
right.
oxidized already. They are not, because omega 3s are really fragile. They
Yeah,
oxidize really fast. That's the prime. This is why you don't see much omega 3 product if it's not refrigerated or completely sealed off, because it goes bad immediately.
yeah. And they're only there
That's
to
the
get you
one.
to drink more. I mean, it's salty, it makes you thirsty, you want another beer, and you just sit there and, drink more
Yeah.
beer, and then you
No,
drink
but
more nuts, you
you
get
know,
thirsty.
Jim, I love there's a really TV show I love. It's Cheers. I love
Mhm.
Frasier and I love
Uh-huh.
Cheers. This is something I can watch like from beginning to end and go back. It's so
Yeah, they're
powerful. I
great
love
shows.
the writing, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
the Cheers, what really is really freaky to me is those beer nuts
Uh-huh.
that everybody put his hands in there, right? Remember the
Right,
old days?
right.
Remember when that law, I was in LA when the law passed that you could not have them like this. You have to have in little packages. You remember that? It was
Right.
like in 84 or 5 or 8 or something. There was a point where you could not serve any nuts because people literally,
Yeah, everybody puts their hands in, whether they'll put their
it
hands all
was
over their
so
mouth, and
disgusting.
then
It
they'd
was
stick
so
them back in
disgusting. And
there.
they realized how much bacteria was in there. And they're like, wow. And that was it. And then that was it. No more on the bar. You've seen that. And then
Yeah.
you have to order, and that's why you have to serve. You have to order that, right? And in
Right,
Spain, you don't put your hands in there. They serve you a plate, right?
right.
It's individual. You don't go in there and start to like poke with your hands everywhere, right?
Mhm.
Which all did, but that was not a good idea apparently.
Yeah, it was a terrible idea.
So
Yeah.
when I look at cheese and I see they're all in there with their hand, oh my God, it's like, and then you touch it and nobody goes to the bathroom wash their hand, right?
No, no. That reminds me, I was watching an old movie the other night that was made in the 40s, I think, and this guy was in a bar and he was drowning his troubles. I think it was Fred Astaire, and he was drinking whiskey with a little soda in it. And while he was there, the waiter kept coming over and ordering. He'd say, 3 bourbons. And so the bartender would put 3 glasses and just pour bourbon in each glass, put them and the guy would go off. Then he'd come back and he'd say, I need 2 more bourbons. And I remember thinking, boy, those were the days to 10 bar. All you had to do was
Right.
serve
Oh
beer and whiskey in little glasses. I mean, there was no
God.
skill whatsoever to it. Um, it was very funny because today, of course, pe-
No, I had to
very
when I
very
was,
few people order that. They ordered cocktails and
you know, when I started, I was at Latok. I was
uh huh.
20. I was not even 21. I was 20 years old. I spoke barely English, and I worked in that very very prestigious restaurant that's still open today, by the way. Latok, Ken Frank.
Not in the same
Really awesome.
location though, right?
No, no, now he's in Napa. It's actually
Yeah,
really good. It's a
yeah,
fantastic dinner experience for sure.
yeah.
And Ken was really cool. It was fun. I mean, he was like 20, maybe 6. We were young, all of us. And Richard Mazera was there from Cesar, right? And
Right.
from Chipanis. He was there.
Ken was at Richard's memorial.
Yeah, I saw him.
Yeah.
And he was Howard also. Howard Bolka. He was one of the chefs at La Toc also. So
Oh,
those people, I still know those people today. I was 20 years old. I'm 61 today. I mean, I was 61 like few weeks ago. But can you believe that I kept like this contact with these people? It's really crazy. So
that's
anyway,
nice.
so I know, and I was tending bar at La Toc, and I never tend bar before, right? So I had to learn all this stuff. And my book was the Boston. I'm sure you have that,
Yeah,
the
the
Boston
Boston.
Guide, right?
Yeah.
And we had to go really quick to find stuff. Oh my God.
Well, you told me a story about how someone, when you had just started, somebody came in and ordered a martini,
I know.
So you just served them vermouth. You just served them martini and Rossi vermouth because in Italy,
Yep.
in France, in those
In
days,
Europe, all over
yeah,
Europe.
somebody said, "I want martini." That's what they wanted,
Yep.
and the person looked at it like, "What the?"
Yeah, he's like, that's way too much vermouth.
And it wasn't cold, of course. You just poured it in a glass and gave it to him.
But it was really cool though. That's the thing. And I gotta tell you, man, I would never so I don't know about 100% all, but most of the people, American people that was asking a cocktail at the bar, they were very patient.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's
There's
I
a.
can't remember someone getting, sometimes they would
I'm sure
get a
they thought
little.
it was funny. I'm sure that when you
They
handed
did,
them,
but they were like, okay, so they say like, no, put some of that. No, stop. Now put a lot of the other thing, lot more. And I was like, okay, and they were like, yeah, because after that they realized that they could ask me whatever they want,
yeah,
so they asked for big pours of stuff.
right,
That
right,
was really
right,
good.
right. There's a one of the most famous, most classic cocktails is the Manhattan, which is
Yeah,
made
right.
with whiskey and typically with a sweet vermouth and bitters. Now there's a variation on this that's called a perfect Manhattan, which
Ah,
means
yeah,
the amount of vermouth you use, you
yeah,
split between sweet and dry.
right,
So we have a bartender at Cesar, Sam, who
right,
today he is a fabulous bartender. But when he
right,
first started tending bar,
right.
when he first sort of moved up from
Hmm.
server to the bar, somebody sat at the bar and they said, "I want a perfect Manhattan." And Sam kind of looked at him and he said, "Well, I mean, all of our Manhattans are really good." And he just thought that
That's
they meant,
funny. Oh my
"I
God.
want it perfect." And so they had to explain to her, somebody explained to him, "No, no, 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 that means this."
It's a drink.
Yeah.
It's a drink. It's actually a drink. That's funny.
So yeah.
Yeah, the adventures at the bar, man. Oh my God. Like people asking me, some people from England asking
Hmm.
me from Cotes des Rones. Wow. I was like, what the hell is that? I mean,
Yeah.
I know French people could be assholes. If you don't say the right thing exactly, they're not going to listen, right? I've heard that many times, but that was so far-fetched. When Cotes des Rones, I was really trying to figure out, because I knew they were misspelling something, but I could not see
Right.
how far they
Well,
were.
if you went into I mean, sometimes people think,
So it's a Côte du Rhône,
French or
Côte du Rhône,
whoever
basically.
are being snobs because they
Right.
refuse to understand you.
Happens.
But sometimes if you mispronounce something enough, they honestly don't know what you're saying. I mean,
Well, that's the
I've
thing. I mean,
we've all experienced it with people that have very, very strong accents when they come here. They'll ask for something sometimes, and I can't understand what they mean. And
right.
I'm not being a snob. I want to get it for them, but I honestly don't know what
You're a
they're
little bit
saying.
of a snob.
Well, I am a little bit of a
Yeah.
snob, but I
It's
want to
a
get
go.
them whatever they want because, of course,
Right.
it's a business. We want to sell it to them, but I have no idea what they're asking for. And
People have to remember that the gourmet ghetto is for elite people. That's where we
yeah,
belong. We belong to the elite.
elite, elite, elite. Well,
It's the
merci.
cream of the cream. It's a half and half of the half and half.
Well, merci beaucoup for that explanation.
Yeah, man. Murchi book up.
See, my French is my
But
French is
anyway, so
très
people,
bien,
très bien.
très
So
bien.
Cotes des Rones was a Côte du Rhône, which I figure out after like seriously after a while. But I love when they say, "Can I have a Chardonnay?"
Yeah.
So Chardonnay, I get Merlot, all this, or Merlot, I get that, right? I get you can kind of figure it out,
Well, I
but
used to say that there was a Chardonnay and Merlot syndrome, and people would ask for Chardonnay or Merlot.
that's it.
Why? Because they could pronounce them,
Yeah,
and because they had some familiarity. They had some idea what it was going to be like. I mean, and in the world of Merlot, for example, there's a huge range of
right.
flavors and body weight and all
But
that
that's
stuff. Because sometimes Merlot in France is usually blended with something else, like Cabernet Franc or
yeah. You don't have. I
Cabernet
mean, it's very
Sauvignon.
rare to drink. Just Merlot
So
is not interesting.
it
It's
can be
it's
very,
flat.
very different, but people have some idea. They
Right.
know it's going to be a dry red wine, and that's what they want. And
I
so they
think what
say Merlot.
happened. I think what happened, James, is because of the difference of categorization, America and Europe. In Europe, we call by the grape, but here they call by the name, right? Or
Well, in
like
France, it's usually the region. It's like
right. So
Côte de
when
Rhône means it's on the banks
yeah.
of the Rhone River.
Mm. So when those wines started to come, I think that's what happened. It created confusion, I think.
Right.
And this is the only two wine that people were liking like to drink is the Merlot and the Chardonnay. That's what the only one they knew. They didn't know any. Or so after that, they knew about Cabernet. They knew that, right? But that was it.
Well, and it's like somebody asked for a Chardonnay once at Cesar, and I said, "Well, we don't have any Chardonnay right now. We have a lovely uh, white Burgundy." I mean, because I knew they wanted a California. I said, "We have a very nice white." Or they
Ah,
said, "Do you have
okay, right.
Chardonnay?" And I said, "Yes, we have a very nice white Burgundy." No, no, I want Chardonnay. And I had to explain to them that in Burgundy, the white wine is
Right.
Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Chablis
Most
is Chardonnay.
yeah.
Uh,
Macon. Oh no. Yeah.
yeah, Macon,
So
Village, all that stuff.
um,
Basically, almost without exception, a white wine from Burgundy is made from Chardonnay. But in California, people tweak it so many ways.
and
Yeah, they do. That's true. And in California, they also age it in oak quite often, which means it gets very lots of
oh,
real tropical fruit and real oakiness. And some people
and
love that because they've gotten
yeah,
used to it. Most
some people
people
don't though.
don't.
No.
I like
It,
my white wine to be much more crisp than that,
oh yeah,
more
right. So that's what the still is that's what the aging still can. I mean
right.
tank.
Yeah.
So it doesn't denature. It stays very nice and crisp and clean.
Hmm.
Very important. Very important. And there's a Chardonnay from the Jura. I forgot the name, but it's spectacular also because the Jura has some very beautiful flowers around when the it's very wild and beautiful. The wine I forgot the name.
Is that the
Ah,
Savoie?
Savoie.
The wine? Is it what's it called?
Savoie is
Is a
Savoy,
region, yeah.
the
Yeah.
region. Jura is another area, but I'll find the name. But you know who James, we should have on the show is Denis Lapouillade.
Oh yeah.
We should have this guy. Oh, we talked about that. He's in Switzerland right now, but
Yeah.
he was the mastermind of the wine at Cesar. He is really the mastermind. There was another idiot.
He was one of the three founders of
Yeah,
Cesar,
yeah, but
along
the other there's another one. I'm not going to say the name. Was a terrible idiot, and he thought he knew a lot about wine, but he knew much less than Dennis. Dennis
Dennis
was
was
really
and
the
Dennis
master.
used to write wine notes for the staff so that we could
Oh
read
yeah,
his
oh
notes,
yeah,
and they
oh
were
those were
great.
great.
They were
Oh my
funny
God, that's
and really
true.
descriptive. I mean, you read his wine notes, you knew exactly what that wine tasted like and how it was made, and he was great. He was great in that
Yeah,
respect.
yeah.
Cameron does
Well,
a really good job today. Cameron does the
yeah,
same
Cameron
thing.
is.
His
I
wine
like
notes are
Cameron. I like.
fantastic.
I like this guy. He's a good manager. Huh?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was not many people at the time. It was Richard on the floor, Denis Lapouillade, and me.
Yeah.
That was it. So those are the people that. And then Maggie. I'm sorry, I forgot Maggie,
Maggie.
the chef. But that's the core. That's the team. The other people, they were just tourists. The one I'm thinking about.
Right, 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 right.
Idiot, idiot. This guy, idiot. Oh my God. Never worked a day in his life, and he wants to. Anyway, it's okay. I'm not gonna blabber on this. It's done. I'm done anyway. And let's stick to the wine.
Yeah. Well, here's a wine question.
Cool.
Um, what
Do you have
happens
to
when
do you have to uncork the bottle before or after you drink it? Right?
Well, that's a funny thing. When I was growing up, when I was young, when I was a young man, people used to say, "Oh, if it's a red wine, you want to open it, a half hour, an hour before dinner so that it can breathe."
Yeah.
But in
Sometimes it's
reality,
fine.
if you take the cork out of a bottle of wine and let it sit there, that is such a small opening. That is just such a small amount of oxygen hitting the wine that it virtually does nothing. I mean, if you
It
left it
does.
open
It
long
does.
enough, it's going to affect it. But if
No,
you,
it actually. I mean, I want to say, look. So in France we do that, and a lot of time, for example, if you go to a nice restaurant in Paris, you can call way ahead so they can uncork your wine.
But if it's a
Because
really tannic wine, if it's like a really big wine that really needs to breathe for a while, you're
right,
better off to decant it.
of course, and that's what happened is when you get a wine, you just uncork the wine and you pour a little bit, so the color
Right.
is exposed. But you know what I've known is the wine, once oxygen heats, it goes everywhere. So you know you were talking about the small white
Mhm.
surface, right? It's okay because the as soon as you open it, it oxidizes. So my dad, when we go to it, when we have a nice dinner at home, my dad has a special cellar with beautiful wines, right? And he would open them the day before.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yep. So tomorrow we have this big dinner. So he would get a couple of Bordeaux, two or three, Alox Corton. He would get like the Corton Charlemagne, those really crazy wines, right? And he would open the Bordeaux 24 hours before because they
Just
were so
open the bottle and
tight.
let it sit there. Yeah.
Yeah, because they were so tight and so big that those are they called Vanguard. They're keepers, but they're too big to. You can't just open it and drink it. You lose. You're not gonna get that.
Right. And it'd be very tannic. It would be
It'll
it
be
would
just tight and closed, not the one has
mhm,
to open and
right.
delivers aromas and stuff. Yeah.
Right. And of course not every red wine needs to be decanted because
No, no, no.
some of them don't they're ready to drink and just pouring them into a glass is going to
But
aerate
that's
them enough to really open
so
them
the
up.
way the wine is made today is made for a young wine.
Yeah.
One young
Yeah.
wine means it's to be able to drink within 5 years.
Yeah.
You just make it to drink,
Yeah.
and that's a different from a Vanguard. Vanguard. I don't know how you keep that. You call that a keeper. Those are wine you don't touch
An
before a
aging
long
wine.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you buy them literally. You can buy by the case. Leave the case at the place at the winery
Yeah.
and pick it up like years from now. It's fine. We've done that. So, for example, for my first son's birthday, when he was born, we bought in 1989. We bought a case of really good Bordeaux from that year, and
Nice.
we gave it to him at his 21st birthday. That was amazing, crazy wine. So that's something that people can do. They can buy the wine from a good something in the world. I like France because it was easy for us. We bought that 89 case of Bordeaux, that's super Bordeaux. And then when he turned 21, we gave it to him. And it's like incredible wine.
Now it's also important when you're talking about aging a wine for that long, it's important that it's aged in the right environment. You don't want to just stick this out in your hot garage somewhere.
Or put it on top of your
Oh, the
hood.
refrigerator, yeah. You want it to be in a place that's cool, that's got good humidity, and most importantly, that the temperature is consistent, so it
Yeah,
stays the same. Because in a wine cellar, typically, if it's underground, it's got an even temperature, or people
it
will
has to be
build,
pretty cold though. It
yeah,
has to be pretty cold. If
or
it's
people
hot,
will
it's
build
gonna.
wine closets, and they'll be
Yeah,
temperature controlled, so they'll be able to keep it.
yeah. It has to be colder than hotter because the hot will create a reaction and it's gonna affect the wine for sure.
So when people say that red wine should be served at room temperature, what they really mean is it should be served at cellar temperature, and a cellar
Right.
is much
Yep.
cooler than what you would think of as room temperature. I mean, if a room is 65 degrees, well, that's
Right.
too warm. You don't
Yeah.
want your wine to be 65 degrees. I mean, it will be by the time you
You
finish
know,
the bottle, probably, but when you open it, you want it to be cool. You want it to be, it's not refrigerated like a white wine, but you want it to be cool. It's like the feeling you get when you go into a
yeah,
underground cellar or
yeah.
a cave.
And that's how, and it goes for everything. Cheese, salami. I mean, it's all like this. Huh? You don't like hot
Right,
stuff. Warm doesn't work. It develops too much bacteria, and then things start to go bad. So
right.
yeah, cold is important, and that's same for yeah. Anyway,
So,
James, we have about 4 minutes.
okay, here's a good question then
Okay,
for the
go.
last 4 minutes. What happens if I drink red wine with fish or white wine with meat? Well,
You're gonna you're gonna you're gonna be sick,
the wine
and
police will come and drag you off to wine prison. No, it's look, you can drink whatever you want with whatever you want, but
Exactly.
typically if you drink a big ass aged Bordeaux with a delicate piece of Dover sole, it's just going to overpower it. It's not going to go well together.
Right.
So,
Unless you drink white Zinfandel, that goes with everything, right?
right, right. But a light red wine with, say, some grilled salmon could be delicious.
Yeah.
There's
Oh
no
yeah.
hard and fast rule. And some people really like white wine when they're eating pork or with chicken.
Yeah,
Chicken is great with white wine. I mean, it all depends on your taste, but you want to avoid the extremes. You don't want a super big red wine with a delicate little piece of fish, or it's just going to completely overpower it.
that's why, for example, when you people talk about chicken because chicken is kind of there's not a lot of flavor sometimes when you do a chicken in cream, you can
Right,
drink white wine with that because it goes kind of with it. So
right,
because of the dish, not the meat itself. So
right.
a chicken in cream, a little white wine would be good, right?
Yeah.
Rather than red. Red is it's gonna feel weird. The tannin don't like this too much, right?
But also, like if you're eating something like foie gras, which is very rich, having a real crisp white wine sometimes can sort of cut through that a little bit.
Well, foie gras goes with Montbazillac, man. That's it. The
Mm,
Montbazillac is a type of Sauterne,
yeah,
but drier. So the Sauterne is has a very sweet honey finish.
yeah.
The Montbazillac is gonna have a more of a bitter. It's kind of the same idea, but
Hmm.
Montbazillac and foie gras is monumental. Let's say that.
Hail
Frode,
Cesar, Frode.
Frode, are you back or not? Can we have it? Can we go on the platform with you? See what's going on over there on the North Sea?
I want to be helicoptered out there to the oil
Oh
rig.
wow, that would be cool,
Wouldn't
man.
that be awesome? I'll bet it's cold up there. Yeah, you got to bundle up.
So Frode is one of my chefs from Texas Coyote in Paris. My super good friend and chef, and he's now a chef in where is that in the
In the
weird?
North Sea and between the islands north of Scotland and Norway. He's in that North Sea. They have an oil rig, and he cooks for like a couple hundred guys offshore at
Oh
the moment.
man, call us when you come back, man. I want to see some new pictures. Okay, he did some
So
cool pictures last time, remember?
yeah,
Okay, so
I
let's.
do. So we got about 2 minutes left. I have a really quick wine question here that is very confusing for people. So let's talk about it. Why are some wines named for grapes and some aren't? We were talking about this briefly earlier. Basically, it's tradition. In America, like the California wine trade, they tended to name their wines for the grape. So you go and you buy a Chardonnay, or you buy a Pinot Noir, or you buy a Cabernet Sauvignon. Um, in Europe, it wines are typically named for where they're grown. So, like we said, a Côte de Rhône, or a Bordeaux, or a even
Barbera,
Champagne.
Barbera, Montepulciano.
Yeah, they don't think in terms of the grape, because also most wines are blended. So like if you buy a Bordeaux, it's typically not all one grape. It's usually Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and maybe Cabernet Franc, and there's various things. So you don't name it for the grape, you name it for where it's made. Also, things were very regional when they first started naming wines. Did
No,
Charlemagne
Charlemagne
drink
was a,
champagne, do you think?
no,
He probably drank.
impossible,
He,
impossible.
yeah,
Champagne was not invented until much later in the 14 or 1500,
yeah.
and Charlemagne is 800.
Right. So he was drinking mead probably, or
No, Charlemagne was a big. He loved Roquefort,
right.
but he used to remove the blue stuff. That's true.
He was
That's
big on
funny.
tequila shots too, wasn't he?
He was big on conquering,
Yeah. So that's basically it. And
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 that's how he created the. So that I'm sorry. Yep, Charlemagne the Carolingien, Capet. This is the Capetien, the Carolingien. You
oh
know
yeah,
anything?
no.
And Charlemagne was crowned emperor in 800, and Napoleon was crowned emperor also in 1800, literally a
Right.
1,000 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
But who cares?
They're and just so you know, they're both dead now. Um, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but they both died.
I'm sorry you are.
Napoleon
I wish
died
you
more
was.
recently than Charlemagne, I believe. But Napoleon did make some great brandy, and
Yep.
also he made some great pastry. There's a great pastry named for him. So, um, well, I don't know how he found the time. He was running around conquering all of Europe, and he had time to make brandy and pastry. I don't know how he
I
did it.
know.
Just a testament
Okay,
to
you
great.
guys, this is it. This is it. Kenny, we'll talk. We'll talk next time.
Yes.
4 days. See you soon. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so much.
joining us. We'll be back. We
Oh yeah,
promise.
we will be back. Right.